Welcome to episode 36 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Rookie or not, Andre Swift, gotta make that catch, man. Gotta make that catch in the end zone.
He does, and we'll spend some time ripping on him later. But we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe twice. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. This week we've got games to talk about, articles to laugh about, commentators to make fun of, and wild predictions to make. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Before we get to the juicy stuff, last week we had some audio problems. And for the first 10 minutes of the show, my lovely co-host Joseph's audio was off. So he was talking and saying some great stuff, telling us about how he's been, and you guys couldn't hear him at all. So I'm going to give Joseph a couple minutes to kind of go over what he talked about, say hi, what he's been up to, since you got to hear that from me and not from him last week, and then we'll get on with our show.
Yeah, so welcome everyone. Glad you could join. I'm glad to be back. Yeah, what a crazy year. I guess one thing I said last week was that for me personally, there's been some inconvenience with COVID, but 2020 has actually been a decent year overall. Now for many it hasn't, but I guess when it first happened, it was very surreal. Didn't had no idea that we're going to be shut down for all these weeks, and so it's just a matter of being really frustrated and confused, and okay, we'll just get by for a few weeks, and then a few weeks turned into a few months, and now a few months have turned into more than half a year. But this is not a political show, so we'll save that for another show. But the biggest changes have just been just personal relationships, trying to figure out either with church or friends, who you can hang out with and when, and the groups, and that was kind of frustrating. Figure out, yeah, who you can spend your own time with your people that you care about. I definitely sympathize with those who have struggled with their work, but don't truly know what it's like. Been blessed to where, I'm still working during this time, um, so it's hard to fully understand how much it's gripped other people who sadly have lost their jobs and stuff. So I've been fortunate to still be working and living. I guess while it seems kind of small, that's kind of the argument of what is small to someone, right? Personal relationships are important to me, and those were greatly hindered and have been. So now it's been better the past couple months. Um, golfing, haven't been able to golf as much, haven't been able to do things they normally do. So it's really interesting to see what people are, don't consider as important, kind of, off the side stuff versus what's important to us, even if it's not life essential. But overall, doing well. Looking forward to this year. Did have some kind of the term. Oh, I forgot the term was. But just kind of blah for a little bit about football and sports. But last few weeks have been really excited. We've added some new things to the show, and really looking forward to doing this podcast with Jeremy another year.
Speaking of new things to the show, we're actually going to have a couple of new segments this week that we're really excited to share with you guys that we're going to get into a little bit later. But first, we're going to do our games of the week. So our first game is Bucks at Saints, as we told you guys last week. So this is the game that we tell you guys about in advance, that we watch together, and then we talk about. So Bucks at Saints, this was Brady's first time suiting up as a Buck. I saw the pregame, watched him put a Bucks helmet on for the first time, and I texted Joseph right away and said, wow, this is surreal seeing this. Ultimately, the Saints defeated the Bucks 34-23. It was I would not call it a lopsided win, even though the scoreboard may suggest that. I actually think the Bucks did a pretty good job for having to sort of redo their offense after, getting rid of Winston. And I thought overall we'll get into the details as we go, but I thought overall Brady actually looked pretty good. He was fairly accurate. He wasn't afraid to throw deep. He did have two boneheaded interceptions.
especially
But
the first one.
yeah, especially the first one. But outside of that, I actually thought he played pretty well. I think the main issue that the Bucks had was more on defense than it was on offense. But that's kind of my overall thought. So Joseph, what did you have any kind of overall impressions of the game before we dive into the specifics?
Yeah, Brady for the most part was accurate. There were some mishaps, but I think it was due to his chemistry. But I think that his arm is still there. I think he still has his arm. That was clear. Um, that's good to see. And he looked pretty good in the Bucks uniform. It worked out, and I think that they're gonna get their chemistry together on the offense. Their defense had some fire behind them. The Saints, kind of general things are, I think Breeze is going to go down this year. Like I think it's going to be a smaller. I know you'd put him in your top MVP rankings, and I think I'm more convinced that he's not going to be in the top 3 to 5 MVP consideration. He's not going to be as prolific, and I think that they're going to, while they didn't have Mark Ingram last year, I think they're going to miss him, still this year, once their run game pick it up. So it was kind of weird seeing Gronk not as used. He was only attempted 3 times and had 2 receptions. I thought we were going to see more of him, but overall, Brady was not really sluggish, but just getting used to the team and still have hope that I think they'll do good. I think the Saints will do well, but I have a gut feeling that Breeze is not going to be. They're not going to win because Breeze is going to have a great year. Also,
I think that's fair. After watching the game on Sunday, I'd be inclined to probably agree with you more than I would agree with myself last week when I was making that prediction. I still think though that he is going to be efficient enough that he will still put up pretty good stats. They may not end up being MVP stats, and that's why I didn't have him as my top for MVP, but I think he'll still be up there. I think the thing is he is still a really, really good red zone quarterback. So even though he may not put up a lot of yards, I think he's still going to have a lot of touchdowns just because he's a reliable quarterback in the red zone, and he still has lots of great targets to throw to. It looks like Michael Thomas is going to miss this week's game against the Raiders, but they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. They've got lots of guys to hit for him to throw to, so I'm not really worried about that. But it does seem like the Saints are maybe starting to shift a little bit more and more, and I know this will make Joseph happy, towards using Taysom Hill more. He seemed to be in the mix a good amount, not so much as a passer. He had 1 pass, which was a pretty epic pass that we'll talk about in a second. But he had 3 carries, but it's not so much his stats that he's going to put up as how he's just a nightmare for defenses to deal with. And I think the case in point was that one play. It was near the end of the fourth quarter, actually, after the game was pretty much over. Breeze dropped back. He threw a lateral to Hill, and then Hill threw a 38-yard pass to Kamara.
it was wide open because of that.
Yes. So I think I could definitely see them doing more plays like that. More, I don't necessarily want to call them trick plays, but more dynamic plays like that, where they involve Hill, just because Breeze is getting older, and it will take some of the pressure off of him, probably get sacked less, etc. So it is a way for them to kind of take care of him a little bit better.
That, and with Hill, one thing is they need to use him more. Either use him more or have him more snaps, because what I noticed is, I'll say the good first and the bad. The good was there was one play, it was on his long rushing. He had a 13-yard rushing play where he was going to pass. He was kind of scrambling around, and then it wasn't open, and he just started sprinting and made a few good moves and got 13 yards and a first down. But the play that I'm going to rip on that was frustrating, and then you realize he needs to be in the game more, because defenses, I think, can anticipate, is it was towards the end of the third quarter. It was 3rd and 2, and you know that the ball, he's taking the snap. You know that Drew Brees wasn't even in the game, I don't think. Like, you know what he's going to do. He's going to run to either side, and they had, I think it was Kamara, shift down on the left. And the defense almost like read it, and they didn't even block. I think there were only 3 on the line, and a bunch of linebackers pressed, and they didn't even block the guys that came through the line. He was forced to go left, and a swarm of Buccaneers came through and tackled him, and it was like a loss of like 3 to 5 yards, and they had a punt. So it's like, if you're going to use him, you have to use him enough to where you know it's not going to what play he's going to do. He can be effective, and he was last year, but defenses know, oh, he's not, Drew Brees is not in the game. The ball is being snapped to Hill. This looks like a running setup. I wonder what he's going to do. So if they're going to use his effectiveness, then they only have 2 options. Only do crazy trick plays, which neither Jeremy and I want to see or think is valid or going to be too effective, or use him more because he can run, throw, and catch and block, but just use him more so that if he's not intentionally involved in the play, it puts the defense on their toes for when he is the next time.
Yeah, I want to see one, maybe twice a game, the Saints pull off that Brees to Hill to someone play. Because I think that can work if it's used sparingly. Because when Brees drops back, obviously the secondary has to go into coverage because Brees is not going to tuck and run. So you've got Kamara, who's this dual running back but also pass catching threat, and then if Hill's on the side, the defense doesn't know, is Brady or is Brees going to throw to Kamara, is he going to throw to a receiver, or is he going to pass back to Hill, who's then going to throw, and it just extends the play by a couple of seconds, which tends to open up coverages and leave receivers open. So I think that can work if it's used once, maybe twice per game at unpredictable times. But it can't be something that they use all the time. And I agree with Joseph that if they just line up Taysom Hill without Brees on the field, they're sort of, it's pretty high probability that Hill's going to run with it. So that does reduce the likelihood of the play being successful because he's not, I mean, they have Alvin Kamara there for a reason, right? Because Alvin Kamara is a really good running back and just a overall threat. So, but we've spent enough time talking about Taysom Hill. There were other things that happened in this game that were interesting. I thought that Brady's first interception was really bad.
I think he didn't see. He must not have just seen.
It looked like he basically threw it to the cornerback. I mean,
yeah,
it was kind of inexplicable. And then his second interception was the pick six, which was also that just looked a little underthrown. That one didn't that one didn't seem quite as egregious to me.
And Jarvis perfectly timed it. It's one of those out routes where, the defender runs up and basically times a pick, and he timed it perfectly. Yeah. But it was a little underthrown.
Yeah. So I did take issue with there were 2 pass interference plays that I took issue with. I thought there were 2 that should have been reviewed and reversed. Well, one of them wasn't called that should have been. There was a play where I think it was the Bucs were on offense, I believe, and there were just defenders draped all over the receiver, and it wasn't called. And then another play that I'm forgetting for some reason that I did not appreciate, and it looked like both of the plays were because we can't review PI anymore. We took that away after only 1 year. That definitely did affect the game. I think it was 1 per team though, so it might have ended up being a wash. But I just hate PI and all the stuff surrounding PI. It is so, it breaks the game. It really does. It because of the amount of yards that a team can make up by getting that foul in their favor, it just breaks the game. And I obviously, me sitting here complaining about it isn't going to do anything, because they're not doing, they regress. They took a step back from giving teams greater freedom to fight that against the refs. Now they can't do anything pretty much. So let's just hope that the Saints don't end their season on a disgusting PI that either knocks them out of their first seed or out of the playoffs or something.
I think we're gonna have to, maybe we'll have to off the air watch the play together and talk about it, because maybe I missed something, but I did take down a note saying there were several big PIs that were called, and I think that they were called right.
So there was one, I'm remembering it now. There was a horrendous no call against Chris Godwin.
So yeah, maybe I missed that, but I mean, for the ones that were called, and there were two that were big that I remember. One was for the Saints, one was for the Bucks. That I thought they were called right.
I think there were maybe 5 big PI calls, and I disagreed with. Well, there were, I think, 4 or 5 that were actually called, and I disagreed with one of them. And then there was one that wasn't called that I thought should have been.
Okay, then maybe it's just happenstance where I'm missing the one that you disagree with.
Okay. So yeah, overall, I think both these teams are going to be good. They showed that they can be that. I think the Bucks D line is pretty good, and I think that they have good receivers that will have good chemistry with Brady. I think they just need a couple games to get going. And I think they'll definitely be a threat to beat the Saints later on. I just think the Saints had more continuity from last year and were better prepared. Although it was funny, the home field advantage was not an advantage. It was so quiet. Listening to the highlights, it was so quiet on that field. So the Superdome is not going to be an advantage for the Saints this year. So we'll see how that plays out in these epic division games that they're going to be playing. Did you have any other comments on the Bucs Saints game? Okay.
The Saints, Deontay Harris, incredibly fast, and they better use him, because I think he only had like 20 yards last year, and he only had 14 yards, only 1 or 2 plays this game so far. But he's really fast. He needs to be like a playmaker that's kind of special, like Sproles was for them years ago. So yeah, that guy was super fast. Didn't realize how fast he was, and I hope he gets used more with that Saints offense.
Yeah, I took down a note about him. He had one play. It was a catch and run for 17 yards, and I thought, in my head, I just thought, oh, this guy's been doing this all day. But then I looked at the stat board, and he had 1 reception and 1 run on the day, and it seemed like, oh yeah, he's being underused. They definitely have more tools in their toolbox. For sure. Their receiving / running back core looks really scary this year. So watch out NFC. Okay. Bears at Lions. As far as exciting, this game was somewhat less so until the end. Couple major comments. Adrian Peterson still has gas in the tank, apparently. He looked really good out there. He was 14 carries for 93 yards, 6.6 average. I thought Trubisky that might have been one of the best games he's ever had. He looked pretty comfortable in the pocket. When pressure was coming, he knew it was there, and he didn't freak out. He sort of would scramble out and threw a couple of really good passes in that situation. One of them was almost a touchdown. And he looked really good overall in the game, except for the fumble. He threw 3 touchdowns, no picks. So who knows if it was just, they're playing the Lions, or if he's actually taking a step forward. It'll take several more games to know that for sure. But If how he played on Sunday is any sign of how he's going to be for the year, I think the Bears could be looking at a playoff spot.
Yeah, that's the same notes I had. Was Trubisky looked pretty well. He didn't have the greatest completion percentage, but I think that's because like a lot of those were intentional and they were good. Like there is a time and place to have a good throwaway ball instead of taking a sack, or throwing a pick. But like his arm looked pretty good, was accurate. Yeah, so Trubisky played well. And then I was going to say also that Peterson looked good, but he has regressed, but that's fine because he's 35 and a half years old as a running back. And, regressing from one of the greatest running backs of all time to, possibly top 10 this year isn't that bad of a regression. So I think he has lost a step or half a step, which again, considering how fast he was, he's now just still above average. I noticed his cuts. I was watching him. His cuts are not as powerful and agile and effective. So he's lost some quickness, lost a step on speed, and doesn't just pull over guys as much as he used to. So he's still going to be, I think he'll be good. Hopefully he keeps it up. But he's not the Adrian Peterson from 7 years ago.
No, he's not. But he did look like he's got plenty of danger left in the tank for the Lions, which is good because they don't really have a core group of running backs to go with. So, yeah, it was exciting to see him still play well. So, there's two specific players that I want to rip on, and then there's another player I want to mention. So, Marvin Jones, is the wide receiver for the Lions, is an underrated wide receiver. He's tall, he's big, he's fast, he's physical. He's not afraid to contest catches. He's an underrated receiver who probably just doesn't get much attention because the Lions have been mediocre for so long. But he looked great. I'll make a comment about kind of the flow of the game, and then there's a couple of players that Joseph and I are going to fire or ask to be fined. The first thing I want to say is, I think so. There was a point in this game where the Lions led 23-6 with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. There was a leaping catch by Allen Robinson on a pretty badly thrown ball. It was an overthrown ball. He leaped out with the very tips of his fingers, grabbed the pass, and I think that was the turning point in the game. It led to a touchdown on that drive. And then on the very next drive, the Lions missed a field goal. And then there was that one-handed catch by Miller.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was the Kyle Fuller interception. So it was just play after play at the end of the game. The Bears kept catching breaks, making these great plays. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Lions played badly. I think they just got outplayed in the last part of the game, and there were some really great moments for the Bears. But the two people I want to rip on, first of all, Justin Coleman, the corner for the Lions, just dropped an interception in the second quarter.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Just dropped an interception. And then I'll let Joseph take the next one because I know we both know what it is. There's a player that needs to be fined.
He is a rookie, but this play still doesn't even get absolved by being a rookie. DeAndre Swift, who had, let me come back here. I think he actually had a decent game. Let's see. No, never mind.
It was okay. Not really. Not stand out.
No. 3 carries, 8 yards for a touchdown, 3 receptions, 15 yards. No. And yeah, he dropped the game-winning touchdown. And it wasn't like it was contested and someone got their hand in there and he should have caught it. No, he basically had it and then turns, and as he's turning and takes a step in the end zone, just drops the ball. And when I watched it again, because Stafford has an arm. Now that doesn't give you an excuse that you cannon one in there. Okay, maybe it was thrown too hard. Stafford did not fire this in there. He didn't. It wasn't a lob pass either, but it wasn't a bullet. So, and he wasn't covered. So no excuse. So he might get some rookie shame. He might fly on the plane back by himself or get on the bus by himself or something. But yeah, that cannot happen. So hopefully, he's a rookie. He'll have room to improve. They drafted him last year high. He can be used, but yeah, that can't be done.
I don't have anything to add. It was awful.
All right.
I saw it live. It was terrible. Quick news before we move on to our next segment, which is a new segment, is that Le'Veon Bell is on IR. If for those that didn't know, he is with the Jets now, and he is on IR with a hamstring injury. And then Von Miller from the Broncos is also now on IR. That looks to be more of a serious thing that they're saying he might be back before the end of the season, but there's a kind of only like a 50-50 chance. So he's going to miss most of the year, which is devastating for their defense. For a team that was already going to be mediocre, so
yeah,
they're not going anywhere. All right. So our next segment is who wrecked face this week? And I'm going to let Joseph explain, because this was his idea, what this segment is going to look like.
So if you guys remember from last week, we ended the show talking about our friendship and how we root for, I want certain players and certain teams to win for their legacy and being a football fan. And Jeremy's like, no, the Niners hurt me back in the Harbaugh years. They didn't win. That was rough. So when we were texting, this is the same conversation a few weeks ago, and saying, hey, Breeze got screwed over by the NFL. Brady won when he shouldn't have, or we should have had at least Brady and Breeze. And so that pushed that Super Bowl. And then the Chiefs won last year. So, can't just have the Niners win all these years. And he's like, man, 2011 to 13 was pretty rough. So I conceded that point. And he basically went on, I don't need to read the text out loud, but basically went on this rant about, I'm a real fan. I'm not going to root for other teams or legacies. And I just want the Niners to wreck face for the next few years. I have never heard Jeremy say that before, which in 12 years, we've said a lot of things. And I've never heard him say that before.
Which is surprising, because I actually do say it reasonably often, but
I don't think I must have never heard it, or maybe it was because it was in a text, right? Reading it might have been different. Seeing the words typed out. So once he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that has to be used in our show. I have no idea how, but it has to be used. I told him that, and I actually had no idea at the time. But when I told him, he said, oh, yeah, I'm curious about your idea. And that actually sparked an idea, and that is to just simply go over the most dominant performances of the week. So some weeks might have more than others, but you know that whether it's defense performance, passing, rushing, receiving, there's going to be a dominant performance. So it's just going to be really quick of just basically listing out the stats. And if I ever get a chance to watch some of these games, explain their dominance. But mostly just reading off the stats, saying, here's the big performances and who did really well. So we'll start with Russell Wilson, who I think probably had game of the week, which is tough to say, those who know us. Russell Wilson, 31 of 35 for 322 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 picks. This one's not surprising. Lamar Jackson, 20 of 25 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Also had about 45 to 47 rushing yards. So we knew he was going to regress a little bit in rushing. I think that's still the case, but he might make those up in passing. So be curious to see how he dominates. He was flirting with a perfect game for a while, and he had 2 of those last year. Aaron Rodgers, a little surprising. He came to play. 32 of 44 for 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 picks. And then lastly, I wanted to add DeAndre Hopkins, right? His first game as a Cardinal. He actually had a career high in receptions. He had 14 receptions for 151 yards on 16 targets, career high in receptions. Hopkins would be good. Now, he did get overpaid. That extension is ridiculous. But he is one of the best wide receivers in the game, and it'll be fun to see him and Murray continue on.
I knew you were going to bring up that last one. That one hurt a little bit, but
Hopkins?
Yeah. But I hear you on the other ones. That was I don't know why we couldn't defend him on Sunday. That was so poor. But I won't dive us into the black hole that was the Niners' performance on Sunday.
Maybe we'll need a segment called Sad Face when the Niners lose.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, I don't like the idea of looking forward to talking about when they lose. That's not the greatest feeling. But
it'll be a recurring weekly segment.
Yeah, it better not be. It better not be. They're playing the Jets this week, so.
All right, let's move on.
All right, so yeah, look forward to future weeks where we pluck out the great performances of the week, and keep in mind, of course, we're not sitting here thinking that nobody has ever done this before. But it's new for this show, and it's a fun thing for us to talk about. So our next segment is our news and stories segment. Our first article, it's not really news, and it isn't really a story either, but it is funny, is ESPN published a article where they listed out a simulation that they ran of the entire 2020 season. And it wasn't just one run of the simulation. They said at the beginning of the article that they ran 20,000 simulations with their football power index, and they plucked one of them, number 3,869, and decided to display that on the screen for everybody to see. And I think what's amazing about that is, well, first of all, I love how the very first sentence of this article is, "Sorry, NFL fans, we're about to spoil the 2020 season." As if they have the confidence that this prediction is actually in any way legitimate, which I don't think the authors of it actually think this is what's going to happen. But even so, it was still a waste of time. So I'll give my couple of quick thoughts why, and then I'll let Joseph go off. So first of all, there's nothing wrong with a projection system, with a prediction engine that runs a bunch of potential cases based on players, statistics, prior statistics, matchups, injuries, stuff like that. There's plenty of prediction engines out there, and some of them are really accurate. It's how some people make a lot of money on the betting market. But the only way that a system like that works is if you use all of its simulations together to form probabilities for certain things happening. You can never just pick one arbitrary run of your simulation and then say that that run has any intrinsic value, because it just doesn't. So I think what they did was they just said, okay, well, we're not going to do the work. We're not going to do the work to show you what we really think is going to happen with our prediction engine, because the reality is that would probably break they have the ESPN Pigskin Pick'em, and they have the Eliminator. That would probably break that, because then people would just use their projection system for those things that they do. So they can't do that. So instead, they just pulled one run from the simulation and dumped out a bunch of results, including that the Eagles are going to beat the Niners in week 4, I think, with 42-7 in a statement game.
Wait, and how about the playoff? There's some ridiculous playoff ones as well.
Yeah, so I'll let you go in that in a second, but my issue is just, this has value if you have probabilities, right? Like if you say something like, say, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 50 touchdowns this season, you don't just say that. You say Patrick Mahomes has a 83% probability of throwing for 50 touchdowns this season based on their simulations. That means something, assuming that, of course, their priors and the data inside the projection engine are rational and reasonable. But this was so funny. It was just so out there. And I think part of it was humorous. It was intended to be that way. But it was just so worthless that it struck Joseph as really funny. So he shared it with me, and we looked it over. So Joseph had some comments on some of the crazy predictions that they made that were funny.
Yeah, so first of all, just want to get to, speaking of like the presumptions or the presuppositions behind making these simulations. Jeremy made a good point. These can be profitable and about increasing probabilities, but because I've run, Jeremy and I took similar classes in college, and we took classes on making simulations, but those simulations are based on basically physics, right? And so you make those, you still have to make your boundary conditions and different constraints, and there's still an educated guess. But then when you run it, physics takes over. You don't have that here with these simulations because you can't predict game changes, coaching changes, momentum, fan involvement, injuries, and so forth. And so it can be slightly arrogant and naive to think that you can get too much confidence out of these. And it becomes especially foolish to only look at one simulation, as Jeremy said. You have to compile many together. And that's the catch-22, is the more simulations you have, you simultaneously hurt and help your case. You hurt your case because you're adding more spread, right? More statistical spread in the simulations. But then you have more cases, which would make you think they're more accurate. That's not necessarily the case, especially when they're not predictive, right? This is more of a random nature. You can't predict the injuries and people, having good days or being emotional or whatever. Like, you can't predict that. So going into these simulations, I take them with a grain of salt, to be honest. But then, to only look at one, and let's consider some of their predictions for this, case number. So first of all, in the AFC East, they have the Dolphins and Patriots combined going 9-23. That's not going to happen. That's dumb. 9-23? No. They have the Chiefs only winning 11 games. They have the Vikings going 10-6, and then everyone else in the NFC North not even winning 8 games. Then they have the Rams tying the Niners in the West going 11-5. And then the winner of the NFC South is at best 10-6. And then let's look at some of the playoff games. Which ones? Oh, yeah. Divisional rounds. The Cowboys beating the Niners 39-26. That's not going to happen. And then the best of all, I'll just say the best one for last. The Chiefs and the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Okay, the Chiefs will get there. The Cowboys are not going to the Super Bowl. So at least they had that the Super Bowl would be a blowout and the Cowboys will lose.
You heard that here, guys. The Cowboys are not going to the Super Bowl.
They'll be better than last year, and they'll go to the playoffs. I think so, but they are not going to the Super Bowl. No.
Well, they were your dream team from last week.
They were my sleeper, but not for the Super Bowl. That's not the definition of a sleeper.
They're gonna be sleeping through the Super Bowl.
So that's that, and I'm really looking forward to our next article. So I'll let Jeremy bring that one up.
All right. So our second article is the ESPN NFL Nation bold predictions for the 2020 NFL season. And the headliner for the article is MVP for Aaron Rodgers, rushing title for Nick Chubb, which actually after yesterday's or last week's games, that's not totally out of the realm of possibility. But I'll go through and read. So the way they break it down is they have one bold prediction for each team in the league. So I'll go through and read off the NFC East or the NFC games and make my comments, and then Joseph will make his comments, and then he'll do the AFC. So
really quick.
Yep.
I want to give my criteria first. So Jeremy and I may have different criteria. I have a criteria that I'm going to be using consistently throughout. I have 5 pieces. So I'm either going to say it's not that bold, it's bold and it's reasonable, it's bold and it's stupid, it's outrageous, or I'm not sure. I just don't know enough to say. So I'll be using that, and that'll filter through my comments.
Okay, sounds good. So the first one, NFC East, Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys will have 3 1,000-yard pass catchers.
Are you gonna go first?
I'm just thinking about it. So I think that's a reasonable. I think that's reasonable. I don't know if that's necessarily. how bold that is. I mean, I guess so. The only thing is I don't know the last time that happened. Do you?
Uh,
Not the
no,
Cowboys, but
but
any team at all.
um, no, but also I know Prescott had like almost 5,000 yards last year, and he has good receivers, so it's not. Yeah, so for me, it's either not that bold or it's reasonable because it's like, oh yeah, two of them almost had it last year. Now you have CD Lamb. Prescott can have a good year and it can happen. So yeah, I'd say it's either reasonable or it's not that bold.
Okay, that's about where I fall, I think. The next one is New York Giants. Whoops. I think I just broke my computer. Okay, so the next one is New York Giants. The Saquon Barkley will break the NFL record for yards from scrimmage in a season. I think that is a little outrageous. He's a good running back. He's one of the better running backs, but I don't see that offense being able to put up that kind of numbers.
So I think it's reasonable. Now, granted, just to make sure, I don't know if Jeremy and I are using the same. When he says outrageous, I don't think he's using the same lingo there. But for my setup, I think it's reasonable. I don't think it's that stupid because he's had some first couple good years. He's shown potential, and he is, if he has a breakout season, he can be an all-time great. He has that potential. So yes, the offensive line has to block for him, but yeah, I think it's maybe a little stretch on the reasonable side, but it's more reasonable than not. I'll say that for a bold prediction.
But this guy's saying though that he's going to do that under the coordinator Jason Garrett, who's your brother. His running back friendly offense. I don't know about that. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I just, whenever people say that someone's gonna break a record, it's just not gonna happen. So that's why I say it's kind of outrageous. The records that are broken are never the ones that are predicted.
Okay.
All right. Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders will lead the NFL in all-purpose yards. I'm not sure about this one. I don't have any reason to think or not think that this is true because I don't really know much about Miles Sanders. So
same.
Washington football team. Chase Young will set the NFL's rookie sack record, which is 14.5 sacks. I think that's a bold but reasonable prediction. A lot more reasonable, I think, than any of these other records that we've just read off are.
Yeah, I agree.
NFC North now, Chicago Bears. Jimmy Graham will catch 80 passes for more than 1,000 yards. When he was in his prime, sure. But I don't think... Again, Trubisky had a good day the other day, but I don't think he's going to have the kind of season to be able to put up those sorts of numbers. So I would say this is certainly bold, but it's not very reasonable.
Yeah, bold and stupid. That's what I'm saying. Yep.
Okay. Detroit Lions behind Jeff Okudah winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. The Lions win their first division title since 1993. No.
Okay, move on. That's a good one. Let's end there.
Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers will win his third MVP. This is definitely bold because we predicted that he was kind of on a decline. I honestly think Russell Wilson has a better chance than Aaron Rodgers does, but I would say this is bold and reasonable, but kind of unlikely.
Yeah, I agree because still Aaron Rodgers, he has the potential. Like we're talking the probability of declining. We've seen that, but he's not just like arm hasn't fallen off. So like it could happen. It's just less likely. So it is bold, but it's also reasonable.
Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson will have as close to a Randy Moss level. Oh gosh. Will have as close to a Randy Moss level rookie season as any receiver has had. I'm going to say no to this just on its face because I hate when people compare young players to like really famous Hall of Fame players.
I'm gonna say bold and reasonable. I think Cousins, they're gonna try to let him out. He needs to throw the ball more. And Justin Jefferson is a special talent, and we'll see if he gets used. So it is bold, certainly, but I think it's more reasonable than stupid.
Just know though that this is a scorching hot prediction. Okay. Just so people know, Moss's record was or not record, but his rookie season was 69 receptions for 1,317 yards and 17 touchdowns in 1998. NFC South now, Atlanta Falcons, both Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley will surpass 1,500 receiving yards. Not if we get the Matt Ryan that played on Sunday. I think this is another reasonable, bold, but very unlikely prediction. Like reasonable meaning that they each individually have the talent to be able to do that. I just don't think it'll coalesce.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's reasonable because Ridley had 130 yards last game and Julio had 157. And you only need 92 or whatever, 90-ish a game to get there. So it is bold, but I think it's reasonable. There'll definitely be top 2 targets. Matt Ryan's going to get his 42 to 4,600 passing yards. So I think it's reasonable.
And be really mediocre. Dude, I don't know how they had 2 great receivers put up those numbers, and they had Russell Gage 9 receptions for 114 yards. So they had 300-yard receivers, and they got slaughtered by the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how does that even happen. So that's why I'm not really a believer in that.
How do you go down from 28 to 3?
Yeah. So Carolina Panthers, Teddy Bridgewater will pass for 5,000 yards. No,
this definitely
no.
outrageous.
This is outrageous. Yeah, outrageous.
Okay, I have my comments here. This is ridiculous. Okay, you can't take Teddy Bridgewater or really any quarterback, but someone who's unproven. He's not bad, right? We're not saying that, but he's had some seasons, 2014 and 15 with the Vikings, played 9 games with the Saints last year. He's got some potential, but you can't take someone who has shown to be average to above average and then say they're going to have a top 20, top 15 season of all time. That's ridiculous. If he has 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, then he's automatically top 15, if not higher season of all time. That's absurd. Get out of here. That's outrageous.
Yeah. No. At best, he'll be a serviceable quarterback for the Panthers this year. Okay, Saints. The Saints will have the NFL's best cornerback duo, Janoris Jenkins and Marshawn Lattimore. Just thinking quickly, scanning through in my head the cornerback duos in the league, I would say this has a reasonable likelihood of happening, but I don't think it'll end up statistically happening. Meaning they have the right guys to do it, I think, but I just don't think they'll end up putting that kind of stats on the page.
I'm not sure is my answer. So
okay. The Bucks will reach the postseason for the first time since 2007. That's not even bold. I think that's just whatever. Cardinals, NFC West Cardinals, Kyle Murray will win MVP.
Oh my gosh.
No. I mean, he has a lot of weapons, but no. Yeah, this says Murray will be able to showcase his skills and throw for 5,000 yards while leading Arizona to the playoffs. I mean, no. There are a lot of true things potentially in this paragraph, but that specific one that is the one thing that matters is false. The Rams will win the NFC West again. No, I don't think so. I think they'll maybe bounce back a little bit from where they were last year, but they're not going to win the NFC West.
It's not outrageous, but it is bold and stupid.
Yes. Niners, Nick Bosa takes the next step, jumping from 9 sacks as a rookie to 16 in year 2. Um, that's that's actually reasonably likely, maybe a little bold. I'm okay with that one. That's probably one of, like, if from hot to cold, cold being kind of boring prediction, that's more on the colder side for me.
Same.
Seahawks, Russell Wilson will win his first. What's with all these MVPs? Russell Wilson will win his first MVP award. Wait, what's going on? How does
No, because they're different. I think it's
are
the
these
beat
team
writer for the
are
team.
these
I
team
think
MVPs, or like?
no. This is I think it's the real thing because remember each writer of these snippets are different writers. I think it's like the team beat writer. So it's
Oh,
possible
you're
for
right. You're right.
there to
You're
be
right. Yeah. You're right. You're right. So, apparently everybody thinks their quarterback's going to win the MVP. So Russell Wilson will win his first MVP. This is perhaps just a little bold because he's competing against Patrick Mahomes. I think ultimately will be his competition, and maybe Lamar Jackson,
yeah.
and maybe Drew Brees. So I would say this is not that bold.
Yeah, for me it's in between not that bold and reasonable. It's in between there. So all
Uh,
right,
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. You're doing AFC.
starting with the AFC. Stephon Diggs and John Brown will each have 1,000 receiving yards. That's not that bold considering they had that last year, and Allen is going to improve and has already improved. So that's just like not that bold.
Yeah, this one's cold for me.
Miami Dolphins, Devontae Parker and Preston Williams eclipse 1,000 receiving yards. So this is bold and reasonable. Parker, that's I think to be expected unless Fitzpatrick plays like he did consistently last week. Um, Preston Williams has the potential and the talents. We saw that last year, but he had that ACL tear. So I'm going to say this is bold but reasonable.
Okay. Um,
Uh, yeah,
I'm just gonna say real quick. I think it's reasonable if Fitzpatrick is the QB.
fair. New England Patriots. Cam Newton will win NFL Comeback Player of the Year. I think that's bold and reasonable. Less bold, but a little bit, and it's reasonable. I think he'll do that. He can do that.
Outside of not, I can't really think of who else would do that. So I'll say I'm unsure on that one.
Okay. Here we go. This one is now just more interesting based on what happened Sunday. Le'Veon Bell will be traded by the midseason deadline. So I put down here that's not that bold, or it's bold and reasonable, just because not because of how he played or the injury. So I think that'll expedite it. But I think there was going to be some tension, and he hasn't been the best teammate. We saw that with the Steelers. Great player. I liked him. Liked him in college. First couple years in Steelers. Don't know what happens, but I just don't think that was kind of like, yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I would say this is probably pretty likely. So I wouldn't even say this is all that bold.
AFC North. The Ravens. Lamar Jackson will lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl title. Somewhere between not that bold and reasonable.
Yeah, same here.
Bengals. Joe Burrow will throw 30 touchdown passes and 20 interceptions. I think that's also. I mean, to me that it's gonna. I think it's gonna be a Peyton Manning-esque, rookie season or first couple seasons. So yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
I think
I think so too.
They're gonna let him sling it, and that'll come at a cost. So, all right, Nick Chubb of the Browns will win the rushing title. Well, considering that he had almost 1,500 rushing yards last year, I'd say that's bold but reasonable.
Same.
Ben Roethlisberger of the Steelers will throw for more than 4,500 yards. If he's healthy, yeah, that's reasonable. A little bold because of the injury, but if he's fully better, then yeah, still has talent on the team, and that's likely.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say it's probably closer to 4,000, but I don't think it's all that bold to say that.
AFC South, the Texans. Deshaun Watson will be sacked 335 times. At first, I put that was bold but reasonable, but I'm going to say that I'm not sure because I know he's been sacked a lot, but he's been improving. Last year, he had less sacks than 2 years ago. Their offensive line is better. So I'm going to say like, so I'm not sure.
Same.
Colts, Philip Rivers will set a career high in completion percentage. Um, you know,
Who even
that's
thinks
either
up that?
it's either I'm not sure or bold, but maybe reasonable because I think he has to get to like almost 70%. So he's doing more dump passes. They have Jonathan Taylor on the team. Uh, I, I feel like I'm leaning towards like I don't know. It's not too crazy, but it's also like I don't know.
I would just say this one's kind of dumb.
All right, fair enough. Josh Allen for the Jacksonville Jaguars will lead the NFL in sacks. Pretty bold, but I would say reasonable. Linebackers can get up there. He had how many did he have last year? He had 10 and a half last year. It says here he only played 60% of the snaps. He was drafted high, and supposed to be a good talent. So it's bold, but it's definitely possible.
Well, dude, he came back. He came back to camp leaner and stronger. So that means that just automatically that means he's going to double his sack total from last year. I
Tennessee
don't.
Titans.
I don't have a. I think this is potential. This is not. This is. I would say this is bold, but somewhat unlikely.
The Titans will finish with two 1,000-yard receivers. Not with Ryan Tannehill, they won't. This is bold and stupid. I'm not going to rip too much on Tannehill. He won comeback player of the year, though Jeremy and I both think that Garoppolo should have won it. But regardless, he was top two candidates, and yeah, he can play decent this year. But no, I don't think they're going to have two 1,000-yard receivers this year.
Same.
Broncos, Drew Lock will flirt with 4,000 passing yards. First of all,
oh my goodness.
So first of all, be specific, guys. Come on, Jeff Legwold. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. I've heard it before, but I always thought there was an R in there for world, but there's not. So everyone else is having specific numbers. Like if I were to say that he was going to flirt with 40 touchdowns, would that mean 39? Would that mean 36? Would that mean 37? Like, is he going to throw for 4,000 passing yards or not? So let's say 3,800. Maybe, but why? Why would you say that? This is just kind of like what's going on?
Yeah, this is a flat no for me.
Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs will repeat as Super Bowl champions. So this is either not that bold or it's bold and reasonable because historically it's tough for teams to repeat in Super Bowl. But it is a year by year basis, and they clearly are one of the best teams. They've made improvements, right? With oh my gosh, the running back they drafted, I forgot his name, who had a really good game last week. But so it's not that surprising because they were one of the best teams last year. They're still one of the best teams, and Mahomes didn't even play the full season last year. But it's also kind of bold, but still reasonable because teams rarely repeat, and the last repeat was the early 2000s Patriots. So yeah.
Yeah, same thoughts.
Raiders. Derek Carr will lead the Raiders to the playoffs. This is bold and stupid. This will
Agreed.
not happen unless I have a caveat here. Though with the new rules, right, sneaking in a third wild card team, but still, I don't think they're the third wild card team. So.
No.
And then lastly, the Chargers. The Chargers will finish among the NFL's 5 best rushing teams. I just don't even know, and I don't even care.
Yeah, ultimately it won't matter for anything. Maybe they will, but I don't think so. I think there's plenty of other teams that have way better rushing offenses than them.
Yeah. So.
All right. So that wraps up our bold predictions for this year, which I think we did a similar article from last year when we did the show. I think ESPN does this every year, and they're mostly stupid. So our next segment is commentators say the darndest things. I love this segment. I look forward to this every week. Do you want it, Joseph? Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So it was in the Cardinals-Niners game. It was after Kyler Murray's rushing touchdown, and the announcer says, he's not a runner who can throw. He's a thrower who can run. And I think without me getting into the logic and the philosophy and spending 30 minutes just tearing that apart, I think it's just saying it is enough. So
I agree. Mine is a similar dumb thing. In the Steelers at Giants game, I don't even remember who the player was because it doesn't matter. It was probably Juju or something.
Juju matters.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm saying it doesn't matter who the player was because this comment
Okay,
could be generically applied to anybody. It just says
okay.
he just said that's just a football player making a play right there.
I can't stand those. How many of those have we heard last couple of years?
That's the greatest. God. That is the greatest, like, sports commentary non-comment of all time.
But Jeremy, you have to have either played in the NFL or have analyzed it for decades to be qualified to make that statement. So how dare we?
I know. How could I broach that? All right, our final segment of the night is our prediction segment, and this is another segment where we're introducing a new mini segment called Tricky Picks, and I'm going to let Joseph explain what that is.
So for those of you who have played on ESPN and they have like their fantasy section where they do like, the pigskin challenge that Jeremy and I have done, the eliminator challenge. They also have one, streak for the cash where a bunch of games that people play to try to win money. You try to build like the longest either consecutive streak or win the most games in a season. They do this for all kinds of sports. And I figured, those have been pretty fun to play over the years. And so kind of want to make our own. So borrowing from how they do their own NFL ones and then kind of making my own. Each week I'll be making several of these for different NFL games. And Jeremy and I will be then kind of betting against each other, but playing against each other and making these predictions within the games themselves. So they're unique. So I have 9 of them here. They might be a little high, so we'll see how many we have next week and moving forward. But I'm just going to read them off, and then Jeremy will think about it for a second, give me his answer, and then I'll give my answer. So first one is the Falcons at the Cowboys. Falcons and Cowboys. Which combo of wide receivers will have the most combined receiving yards? Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, or Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb?
Jones and Ridley.
All right, I'm going to agree with that. Vikings Colts. Who will have the most yards from scrimmage? Dalvin Cook or Jonathan Taylor?
I'm going to say Dalvin Cook.
I'm going to say Jonathan Taylor. Bills at Miami. I'll have to clarify this one. Which will be more, the number of scoring drives by the Bills or the number of points by the Dolphins scored in their worst quarter, not including a 0? So if the Dolphins kick a field goal in the third quarter, then will the Bills have more than 3 scoring drives, which could either be a field goal or a touchdown, or, sorry, I should say scoring plays. So safety and pick 6 count as well.
I'm going to say the Bills are going to have more scoring plays.
You know what? I was thinking that too, but I'm going to be a little daring here. I'm going to go with Miami. I'm going to mix it up.
All right. You believe in your team to put up consistent numbers, which
not really, but I'm just going to, be risking it here.
Okay. All right.
Panthers Bucks. Well, I like this one. I'm actually proud of this one. Who will have more total touchdowns? Christian McCaffrey or Tom Brady?
I
know, right? Tough one.
I'm gonna say Christian McCaffrey.
All right, same here. Ravens Texans. What will be more, Lamar Jackson's passing yards or Deshaun Watson's passing and rushing yards?
Deshaun Watson's passing and rushing yards.
Going the same there. So, and the reason why I did that is because if I said Jackson's total yards, I think that'd be more obvious. I wanted to make that a little difficult. I like this one too. Patriots, Seahawks. What will happen first? The Patriots score or a Seahawks touchdown?
Ooh, that's interesting. I'm gonna say the Patriots score.
Same. Saints Raiders. How many points will be scored in the third quarter by both teams combined? 17 or more or under 17?
In the third quarter only combined?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm gonna say 17 or less. Or is it less than 17?
It's under 17.
Under 17. I'm gonna say under 17.
Okay, I'm going 17 or more.
Okay.
And this next one I'm proud of. I'm actually going to skip the next one and go to the last one first because I like number 8 better than 9. Okay, number 9, Bengals versus Browns. Who will throw a pick first? Burrow or Mayfield?
Burrow.
All right. I am torn, so I'm just going to say Mayfield to make it fun. All right. Number 8. I like this one. Which combo will be higher? The passing yards of Patrick Mahomes combined with Gardner Minshew, or the passing yards of Aaron Rodgers combined with Ryan Tannehill?
I'm gonna go with. Who are the Packers playing this week?
Ooh,
the Packers are playing the. Where are they?
Why can't I find them?
I don't know. Why can't I find? Oh, the Lions at Packers. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say. Packers or Rodgers and Tannehill.
Same. I'm going the same. That's a tough one, but I'm gonna go with that one as well. Rodgers and Tannehill. So hey, Jeremy, Jeremy did not hear these beforehand, so I'm curious on live. What'd you think of these?
I like those. There were a couple that were a little lopsided, but for the most part, they seemed. I had to think about them, which means that they're
okay.
On their face pretty even.
What were the ones that you think were the most lopsided?
I think the Lamar Jackson passing versus Deshaun Watson passing and rushing is a little lopsided, just because I think, Watson typically puts up pretty good passing numbers, so it's likely that plus his rushing will be more than Lamar Jackson's passing only. But then if you add in Jackson's rushing, then that's almost guaranteed to be more Jackson total. So that was just kind of a tough one, but tough one to make even. But the rest of them were good. I liked them.
Okay. All right, cool. Then I have some good feedback for next week. So
awesome. All right, so moving into our final mini segment of the night, our predictions, our game predictions, and our game of the week. So our record this last week was pretty dismal, but remember it was week 1, and week 1 is always really hard to predict. I was 9-7.
Home games are irrelevant. Home games are irrelevant now because of the fans.
So correct, and we saw that for the first time. I was 9-7, and Joseph, you were 8-8, right?
Yeah, because I had the Rams game wrong.
Yeah, so we differed on 3 games last week. Seahawks at Falcons. I picked Seahawks, so I got that one. Joseph picked Falcons. Bears at Lions. I picked Lions and got that one wrong. And then Cowboys at Rams. I picked Rams and Joseph picked Cowboys, so I picked up a game on Joseph. All right, so this next week, week 2, starting with Bengals at Browns. I'm picking Browns.
Bengals.
Ooh. Joseph has this Joe Burrow obsession. We'll see when in the year that will collapse, but it hasn't collapsed yet. Next game.
Giants at Bears. Going Bears.
Same. Falcons at Cowboys. I'm going Cowboys.
Same. Lions at Packers. Packers.
Same. Jaguars at Titans. This was a tough one, but I'm going Titans.
This was also very tough. I'm going with Minshew madness.
All right.
Vikings at Colts. This one was tough for me.
Yeah.
But I'm going Vikings.
Same. This was also tough for me. I think the Vikings are going to have a bounce back game this week. Bills at Dolphins. I'm going Bills.
Same. Niners at Jets. Niners.
Same. Rams at Eagles. Another tough one, but I'm picking Rams.
Eagles.
Okay.
Broncos at Steelers.
Same. Panthers at Bucks. I'm going Bucks.
And the Washington football team against the Arizona Cardinals, going Cardinals. Though that should be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm going Cardinals over football team on this one. Chiefs at Chargers. I'm going Chiefs.
Chiefs. Ravens at Houston. Ravens.
Same. Patriots at Seahawks. I'm going Seahawks.
Same here. And then lastly, for the Monday night game, Saints at Raiders, going Saints.
Same. Okay, so we differed on Bengals at Browns, Jaguars at Titans, and Rams at Eagles. So we'll see how that plays out. Our game of the week is going to be Ravens at Texans, and then Joseph and I will pick a second game that we'll watch the highlights of after the games are over, so we can pick a good game to talk for our second game for next week's show. So that's a wrap for this week. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.